Everyone, I am Catherine from Becoming You, and today I am going to be having a little live, my very first live video with a special guest called Tzvia, and she's going to be joining me shortly. There she is. I'm going to wave to her and hopefully I can make this happen because it's the very first time I'm doing this. But thank you for joining me. I'm excited to see that there are some people here. There's always a little bit of nerves when you go live and you're like, is anyone going to join? Anyway, today we're going to be talking all about hair removal. So it's something that affects a lot of women, and it's something that I think a lot of people are going to be sort of interested to ask some questions. So I'm going to quickly add Tzvia. Let's see if this will work. Tzvia, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm always quite impressed with myself when I get technology to work like it's meant to.
And it's working. How awesome is that?
I know. Thank you for joining me tonight. I've been very excited to have you on my channel and to have some of my followers come and get to know a little bit more about who you are and what you do, and have a few questions answered. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on your channel. It's an honor. I think we've known each other for quite some time now.
Oh yeah, it might be the start of a whole new thing for me. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I'm grateful that you are my very first guest. So thank you. So let me just introduce you to some of my followers. Tzvia Hermann is the founder of a company called the Laser Beautique, and they specialize in all things beauty and technology, and most especially laser, but not only laser. I think she'll go into a little bit more detail about the variety of options there are for hair removal. So we are here to just say, let's ask your questions. If any of you've got any particular questions you have about hair removal, please just feel free to share them in the comments, and then I'll direct them to Tzvia and she'll be able to give you a little bit more information if that's something you're looking into. I've been on a journey with the Laser Beautique for the last 6 months or so. And so I'll also be able to share a little bit of my experiences and my insights into the journey. I know facial hair, body hair, it's something we don't really talk about very much as women, but I think it's something that affects all of us, and it can really take a big hit on your self-esteem if you struggle with excess body hair or facial hair that makes you feel a little bit insecure or sort of unconfident in certain social situations. So there's a lot to be said for the benefits of looking into this, because I know that it's something that's really improved my self-esteem and confidence. It was something that initially I would hide and feel awkward about, like some hair on your upper lip or on your chin. And as you're getting older, past 40 soon, yeah, it gets a little bit more, there's a little bit more facial hair and you start going, oh my goodness, what is happening to me? So it's something that I'm very grateful that I've explored. It's really helped me in my self-confidence. And so I am quite keen to share that with other people, because I think it makes a big difference. So Tzvia, maybe you can tell us just a little bit more about Laser Beautique first, and then we'll direct some of the questions. I see there's already one coming through.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. That's awesome. So yeah, we started the Laser Beautique over 10 years ago. So we were the first in South Africa with pain-free permanent laser hair removal. And I mean, we're talking like over 10 years ago. Now there's a laser clinic that has popped up around every corner. The competition is quite rife, and I think there's a lot of devices, a lot of, I guess, like in every industry, you got a lot of reputable beauticians or salons or clinics or aesthetic clinics, whatever you want to call it. But on the other hand, you've also got a hell of a lot of irresponsible users of laser, which can give laser a bad rep. And I think that having this discussion with you and having your readers listen is so important, because, you know, it's only by educating and I guess sharing my expertise, because for the last 10 years, that's what I've been doing. It helps people understand, because there's a lot of people out there that have gone for laser, or they've gone for IPL thinking it's laser, and they haven't had the response or the results that they've wanted, or they've been burnt, or they've been scarred. And so it's quite nice to be able to, I guess, first do maybe a little bit of myth busting, and also just let people know what to look forward to, or what to look forward for.
Yeah. I was one of those that first fell into this world when I don't know if you recall, Groupon was a thing, and there were, you know, all these hundreds of special offers on, and they almost were too good to be true. And I would slip myself through to the northern suburbs of Cape Town every sort of few weeks to go and have laser, and it never quite gave me the results that I was looking for. It was like session after session after session, and I would keep going, and it just didn't seem to give me that result. So I became quite skeptical of what it was. But I think what you are saying is quite true, in that it makes a very big difference, the machine that you use. From what I've learned in subsequent visits to different salons, that yeah, there's certain ones that work and there's certain ones that don't. So it's important to really do your research. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about which ones work.
So I think to get the best results, or to get the best bang for your buck when it comes to laser hair removal, I think there needs to be three important factors in place. Number one, that technology needs to be right. They need to be using a good device. And there are so many. I mean, when I started over like 10 years ago, like there were like a handful of really good, reputable brands. Now there are hundreds of brands, and like you just don't know who's good, who's not good, which one is actually true to its promises, which one is, you know, just packaged beautifully, but the actual tech inside is not as good. So I think that only once you've been in the industry for many years, and you've got your finger on the pulse, and you know all the manufacturers quite well, do you know which devices are reputable. And so I think it's the device. It's also the training. The training's huge, because you can have the best technology in the world. If your therapist hasn't been trained properly, it's worth nothing. You know, she'll misuse it. She could scar, she could burn, she could not get you the results that you want. And then thirdly, I think it's a result-driven environment. I think that we are all human, and we all have tendencies to sort of kick back into like pilot mode. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I know that sometimes I get into my car and I've driven to the office, and in actual fact, I was meant to drive somewhere else. And it's just because I'm literally on autopilot. And with anybody, even estheticians, even doctors, even therapists, they all kick into, at the end of the day, once you start doing the same thing all day, every day, it's only human nature to go into like autopilot. And unless you're working in a result-driven environment where there's processes, and there's processes that have been implemented to make sure that it keeps all your staff on your toes. So like, for example, we send secret choppers, and we will have like surprise visits from head office, where we'll visit and pick up files, client files, and look through the parameters that have been used to treat the client, to make sure that they've been increased after every treatment, etc. So I think unless you're in an environment like that, it's very easy to take people's money and not provide them with the results that they're actually paying for. And also there's a lot of Chinese, a lot of Korean, a lot of really good devices. But then on the other hand, there are also these like really cheap, nasty devices, and they package so beautifully. I mean, they look the part. And anyway, so and a lot of places are also, they sell IPL as laser.
Okay.
So this is a biggie.
That was one of the questions.
IPL is not laser.
Yeah. What is the difference, or the differences between IPL and SHR was one of the questions that came through.
Good question. So SHR stands for super hair removal, and SHR refers to the treatment technique. it doesn't necessarily describe the device. So first I'll tell you what the difference is between a laser and an IPL, and then I'll tell you what the difference between the different treatment techniques are, because you've got SHR, you've got HR, and you've got pick and place.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to show you a little picture, because I think pictures always speak louder than words, and it'll really show you the difference between an IPL and a laser.
Okay.
Can you see that image there?
Yes.
So you can see here, so sorry, the writing is upside down, but don't worry about that. You can see here that this is a spectrum of light. There's all the colors of the rainbow there, right?
Yes.
Well, except for red. Where here, it is a true laser. It's only one color, and the laser is very much treating with a pinpoint approach, where this is more of a scattergun approach.
Okay. Yeah.
You can see here that the surrounding tissue is being affected,
Yes.
where over here it's not.
Okay.
So I feel it's not a bad treatment. It's just not a good treatment for hair removal. Okay. It's great for like skin rejuvenation, and it's good for, let's say, pigmentation. So it's great for skin resurfacing as such, or skin even toning, but it's not great for hair removal. So, I mean, when you think about a light or a laser treatment, what is a laser? I mean, you've got really cheap lasers, and we're talking about, you know, those little key rings that you have, where you press the button and a little red light. That's a laser. But that's a very cheap, unsophisticated laser that, I mean, you've seen, they're tiny, they're cheap. Where a laser, for example, for hair removal, that is a very sophisticated laser, because it is filtering light at a specific nanometer. So, for example, a diode laser is 810 nanometers. You know, where an IPL, it's not as, the tech is not as sophisticated, which means that there's a spectrum of light, which means it's actually a much more affordable device. So you can pick up an IPL machine for an affordable price, well, in comparison to a laser. A proper hair removal laser that works really well is going to cost a Salon or about 1.5 million rand with the dollar-rand exchange today. So not everybody can afford it. Yeah. So not all laser clinics will have a real laser. They'll have cheaper nasty, or they'll have IPL, and they'll sell it as pain-free permanent laser hair removal, because a lot of these places don't even know the difference between IPL and laser, which is just ignorant, or it's malicious, one of the two, that they're trying to sell something that isn't. But either way, people who are going for the treatments are not getting what they're paying for, which is not okay. Yeah. So I think it's really important to know the difference. When we talk about SHR is super hair removal. So old school technology, I don't know if you ever went for really old school technology laser where it was very, very painful.
I think I might have. The very first group on sessions were probably that, yeah.
So with those old school devices, you could only use, there was only one treatment technique that was available. And the treatment technique was called pick and place. So they'd place the handpiece on your skin, and they'd zap and move and zap and move and zap and move. And with every zap, it felt like an elastic band stretching to the other end of the world and snapping on your skin. It was torture. So that's called pick and place method of treatment.
Okay.
And when we treat using pick and place, there's only one zap. And in that zap, what we're trying to achieve, or what was the aim, was to, now remember, when we laser, what are we doing? And it's whether you're using an IPL or a laser, you're trying, or the laser is following the pigment in the hair, yeah, all the way down to this hair follicle, to this little bulb over here, where the hair meets a little capillary, which feeds the hair oxygen and nutrients. And that's why, you know, sometimes when you pluck a hair, it'll bleed. It's because you're plucking it out of that detached mode, like mode of being detached to a capillary.
Yes.
So you can see there that laser is heating up that bulb, where the IPL is not just heating up the bulb, it's also heating up the surrounding tissue, which means you can't really treat on a high frequency with IPL because you'll burn people's skin.
Yes.
Where with laser, it is really much a pinpoint. Now, with pick and place, that zap, move treatment technique, you've got one zap to get all the way down to that follicle to treat that little capillary.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what you're doing is, now think about it this way. Imagine I had a old school bad for the environment plastic straw. And I took a lighter to it. What would happen to that plastic straw? It would melt shut. But it would basically coagulate. It would like basically draw in, melting in shut, so that nothing can pass through that straw.
Yes.
So that is exactly what we're trying to do to that little capillary that's feeding the hair. Because if the capillary is not getting any oxygen or nutrients, it cannot grow. So, and that's why you can effectively have permanent hair removal. So now, with that pick and place method, it was very, very painful. Now, when we talk about SHR, we're talking about new technology that allows for pain-free permanent laser hair removal.
Okay.
So we're talking where, imagine I've got that handpiece again on the skin. Instead of going zap, move, zap, move, zap, move on a very high frequency, I'm lowering the frequency right down, and I'm accumulating the heat. So I'm going beep, 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 over the same area, over and over, beep, 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 until I accumulate the energy and the heat, and then I'm able to still coagulate that capillary that's feeding the hair.
Okay.
But I'm doing it gradually, as opposed to in one zap that's really painful.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So I like to always give a nice analogy, because I think it really sort of the penny drops when I give this analogy.
Yeah.
If I draw you a boiling hot bath and you try and get in, you're going to burn. But if you get into lukewarm water and I slowly increase the temperature, you're not going to burn.
Yeah.
I can even get that bath to the original heat, like that really hot bath that would have burnt you. I could even go hotter, and you're still going to feel comfortable. You're not going to jump and feel pain or have any burns. You're not going to suffer burns, because I've slowly, gradually gotten you used to it. So that's why we can now painfully yet aggressively treat. So you're going to get much better results with fewer sessions.
Okay, with the SHR method.
So it's not just the treatment technique, because you need the right technology to be able to treat using this technique. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, there are a couple of questions that have come through, so I just want to make sure that we're answering those when we chat. So maybe I can just ask you one of them that's come through. So let's have a look here. So Tammy has said, I had laser for 2 years. Have loved the results, but wondering how long you have to do the upkeep, and realistically, how often?
How long has she had laser for?
2 years.
So in 2 years, you should have completed 12, 14 treatments. And we say that you need between 8 to 12, generally speaking. You might need less, you might need more. Remember, laser is a medical treatment, and with any medical treatment, there's no hard and fast rules. We can say to you, look, in the last 10 years, we've generally found that people need between 8 to 12 treatments. Also, remember that hair can stay dormant for up to 5 years.
Oh, wow.
So you can have your laser treatment, and you can have your 8 to 12 treatments, and you can be silky smooth and, you know, pain-free, hair-free. but then a year later, you might need to have a little bit of a maintenance treatment, 1 or 2 or 3 treatment, like over the years, just because there could have been dormant hairs that have woken up and then have grown. It's not to say that the hair has grown back, because once you have coagulated that little vein or that little capillary that feeds the hair, it can't grow back. Not unless you go in and surgically cut that little capillary so that it can start, you know, but it can't go back. So a lot of people say to me, oh, but my hair's growing back.
Are ones that were dormant, or maybe new hairs that have kind of,
Exactly.
So you recommend that if you've had a session of 8 to 10 or 8 to 12 sessions within a year or a 18-month or a 2-year period, that you should still go back for a maintenance once a year, once every 6 months?
So it's all very, very personal. Like, you might just need once, you might need to go twice or 3 times, or you might not even need to go in 5 years, but then like in 7 years, like a few hairs are sprouted up and it irritates you, and then you just go and laser those away.
Yes.
You know, and it also all depends on your body, and it also depends on your hormone levels and what's going on with your hormones. And I mean, I know that for a while I had a couple of bodybuilders that were coming in for laser, and they had session after session after session after, and I wasn't getting the results that I wanted, and I was very confused. And on our documentation, we ask, or on our registration forms, we ask that anybody who has treatments with us tell us exactly what medication they're on, because medication that you're on can affect your hair growth.
Okay.
They weren't on medication, but they were on all these bodybuilding supplements. So no matter how much I lasered them, this hair was just, their hormones were just all over the place.
Yeah.
So yeah. And also, like, for example, if a woman's got polycystic ovaries, your hormones all over the place. So you need to go and
sadly.
So you need to go on hormone stable. I mean, you know. So I understand if someone gets upset, because from the get-go, all these questions should be asked, and it should be written in your registration form. And some people forget to like update the therapist when they go. So let's say they start going for their treatments, and they're like 5 or 6 treatments in, and they forget to tell the therapist that they've decided to go on Roaccutane.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to, like, if you've got to tell, because Roaccutane thins your blood, which means that we can't treat you as aggressively as before. We need to be very careful. We don't want to burn you. We don't, you know?
Yeah.
So it's very important.
Okay.
Someone
else asked Francesca, she says, how many sessions on average do you need to get rid of underarm hair? So obviously some hair is more hormonally driven than other hair. That's what I've discovered. I went for laser under my arms, and that worked really well, like really quickly, and it's been fairly permanent. I mean, I've got a few wisps. Like you said, I probably need a maintenance visit, but I found that hair really easy to get rid of. But then on my face, like lip and chin, is much harder to get rid of because it's hormonally driven. And I have polycystic ovaries. Sometimes they flare up, sometimes they go away. Depends on a whole bunch of things. But yeah, though that area I've felt like I've had to treat longer. And I even tried out a different method. Actually, want to remind me to have this meeting, and then
I can't hear you.
It keeps going off. So maybe you can just talk to how many sessions you need for each particular area, for body hair as well as facial hair.
So, okay, so remember, and I'll show you another image again, because images just always speak louder than words. So remember, when you have laser, the laser follows the pigment in the hair, like I said, all the way down to that bulb where it's attached to that little capillary that's feeding it. Now remember, it's following the pigment. The darker, the thicker, the coarser the hair, the better the result, because there's more pigment for the laser to follow. So underarm hair and bikini hair is coarser, it's thicker, it's darker. So you're going to get results a lot quicker. And you're going to notice them where thinner hair, so the thinner the hair, the harder it is to get rid of.
Yeah.
So vellus, light, blonde, ginger, gray hair, white hair. If anybody tells you that they've got a laser that can treat light hair or blonde hair or gray hair or white hair or ginger hair, don't believe them. It's either they're lying or they're just ignorant and don't know better.
Yeah.
But no laser can scientifically treat vellus or light hair. But don't worry, because we do have a solution which is also permanent and it's virtually pain-free. And we can talk about that also. It's all about our electrolysis reinvented.
Yeah, because Bronwyn asks, what is the best advice or treatment for light superfluous hair removal? So maybe this is a good time to discuss that, because I think this might be the right treatment for that particular question.
Yes. So because laser depends on pigment in the hair for the results, it's not ideal. So I'm sure you've heard of electrolysis. And I know that a lot of people, when they hear electrolysis, they're like, oh my God, they run for the hills. And when I first thought about electrolysis and I researched, because I was really aggro, that I had all these clients coming to me for laser hair removal, but I had to turn them away if they had light hair. And especially older ladies that are starting to grow white, blonde, ginger, like I call them whiskers, because they're like white and they're wiry and they're thick. And I mean, I remember my gran always doing this by the mirror, and it's like you said, it can kill someone's self-esteem completely.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's nothing worse than having facial hair for a woman or for a man to point out that you've got a little something, you know. And I mean, I've lasered my whole face. I've even lasered, because I'm a freak when it comes to hair. I hate hair. I mean, I've even lasered all the way up my sideburns, all the way here, because I don't like hair. I mean, I've got, and you can see, I mean, I'm Mediterranean, so I'm blessed with a lot of it up here, which is great. I mean, I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
But it's everywhere else too. It's not, that's not okay.
I've got the same issue. Everyone kind of always comments on how much hair I've got. I'm like, yes, it's lovely, but it also has its downsides.
It does. It has its downsides. But now, so let me tell you a little bit about electrolysis reinvented. So old school electrolysis was torture. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. I'm going to show you another little image. So you can see here, what is electrolysis? Electrolysis is a treatment where a probe, so this is not a needle, it's a probe, is inserted down a hair follicle, and the heat or the energy is released by that, right by where that little capillary is sitting, so that you're not relying on the pigment of the hair. Now, a lot of people think that electrolysis is painful because they think, oh my God, it looks like a needle, and they're putting it down and they're like puncturing the skin. It must be so hectic. So getting, first of all, the probe, it's not a needle, it's a probe. It's as thin as one hair. One strand of hair, that's how thin it is. I mean, electrologists wear either surgical glasses, or they've got these like mag lamps, like super futuristic mag lamps, so that they can see properly. And imagine this is your hair follicle. It's actually a natural opening. So imagine there's a hair coming out of that natural opening, and this is my probe, and I'm inserting the probe down the natural opening. That is not painful at all, because you're not puncturing, you're not, and then you're releasing an energy down there where that hair follicle is attached to the dermal papilla. Remember I showed you, where's that image again? Here we go, I showed you that image.
Yes, yeah.
So you're inserting the hair right next, inserting the probe right next to the hair, down the opening, all the way down to that little capillary, so that you can, and that's not painful at all. So now old school electrolysis devices, firstly, the probe was thick. It wasn't as fine as a hair. Okay. So electrologists used to like miss that natural opening a lot. So that was painful. Then what they used to do is the probe itself was not flexible. So it was stiff, and which meant that if they put the probe down the natural opening, what you do as an electrolysis, you're trained to put it down and then feel for the bottom so that you know where to stop and where to release that energy. But if your probe is stiff, it's going to nip. But if it's flexible, it's going to just bounce off. You won't feel it. And so also another huge factor with the pain is, there's actually two more, is that the probes are insulated. So if you look at this probe, you can see that the energy, you see there's like a little energy that's coming out of the probe. It's only right at the tip of the probe.
Mm-hmm.
Old school electrolysis probes, the energy would go from the tip all the way up to there and would burn that skin.
Yeah.
So very sore. So you'd have all these women that have had electrolysis on their chins and on their upper lips and whatever, but because it's burnt basically around the skin, they've gotten rid of the hair, but now they've got a burn around that hair follicle, so it actually looks like an open pore.
Yes. Like
a big open pore, but it's a burn.
Yeah.
But it's a scar, it's a burn actually.
Yeah.
So that's why electrolysis died. I mean, do you remember like do you remember those old school radios?
Yes.
Like in your car? And do you remember it used to have like a little knob and you'd have to turn it like this to like try and get the right frequency, to try and get 94.7, and like sometimes you'd get it and sometimes you wouldn't. And the old school electrolysis devices looked exactly like an old school car radio.
Okay.
And that is how electrologists had to find the right frequency. They'd like, let's see if it works. If it works, yay. I mean, in today's day and age, we're talking. Sorry?
It was very hit and miss, obviously, this process.
Very, very. I mean, now it's touch screen. It's all preset parameters. It's like you can't make a mistake.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's, and also the heat. So now remember, we're releasing heat. Now, how does heat work? Heat works, imagine you've got a negative pole and a positive pole. And your current is going from negative to positive, negative to positive, negative to positive. And that movement is causing friction, and that friction causes heat.
Okay.
Now, the rate in which to positive and negative. Now, old school electrolysis devices worked on a megahertz of 4, and take into consideration that the lower the megahertz, the more painful it's going to be, because it's slower. And the higher it's going to be, the faster it's going to be. And if it's fast enough, the brain doesn't even pick up that anything's actually happening because it's so fast. So yeah, so the new age Ipl electrolysis device from Dectro, they make it in Canada. This is a company from Canada. The megahertz is 27 plus. So it's like you can't compare.
Okay.
You can't compare at all. But anyway.
Okay, great. One or two more questions have come through. So let me just say, here's a good question. I think a lot of people get put off because they hear the word laser or electrolysis and it sounds quite terrifying, and they're worried about the long-term side effects. Are you aware of any long-term negative side effects that might be something that could put people off, or yeah, how would you answer that?
So thank God, none whatsoever. And take into consideration, I've been lasering since I was 14. I mean, the technology then is so different to now. And remember, I mean, I know that the technology that we use at the Laser Beautique is all FDA approved. And if something's FDA approved, not usually, it is. It's been, I mean, they've gone through it with a fine-tooth comb. They've picked it apart. I mean, we know, and I always say that in America, the Americans love to sue. And I know, I mean, that's why we've got all those like famous American like legal sitcoms, like your Suits and your Ally McBeals and all of that, because it's like part of American culture is to sue each other.
Yeah.
And so I think that once something's been FDA approved, it really has been picked apart and is safe and effective, and it's FDA approved. So yeah.
Okay.
And it's been going on for years.
You mentioned now you started lasering when you were 14. So one of the questions here was from Claire. She says, I have a teen daughter. When is a good time to start with hair removal?
So I've got kids from the age of 6 coming to laser at us.
Oh,
because I mean, there's one particular 6-year-old that I'm thinking about now, upper lip hair. I mean, I was one of those girls also at 6, 7 that I had upper lip hair and dark.
Yeah.
And you know, like those little milk moustaches, when you drink milk, you get like one of those little milk. And I mean, it's a Mediterranean thing. And most Portuguese, most Italians, most Mediterranean, most Mexican girls all have it. It's nothing to be ashamed of, but you've got to do something about it. And waxing a 6-year-old is not an option. Like, I remember, like, my mother's a beautician, and I remember her strapping me down to her plinth, and she would wax my upper lip, and it was torture. And I remember, like, it was like nightmares. And laser's pain-free, so I can't think of anything worse than threading. Have you ever threaded?
I've done that. Oh my gosh. Oh, it is the most horrifically sore thing I've ever done.
Horrific.
I did it once in the shed elbows, and I literally had tears rolling down my cheeks.
And women do it. I don't understand how you do it, because I'm such a baby.
No, I've never done it again.
No. And I mean, but women thread their entire face.
I don't know.
And they thread like their, so a little interesting, did you know, if you Google Kim Kardashian, her early pictures of her forehead, you'll note that she's got a very small forehead. And then what she did was,
yes,
she's lasered. What they've done is to open up her face a little bit. I mean, you can see that naturally, nobody naturally has a perfect, like, hairline.
Yeah.
If you look, it's all been drawn back, and they've lasered her a perfect hairline and given her a bit more of a forehead.
How weird.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we've lasered everywhere. I mean, from monobrows to nose to ears. I mean, the nice thing about electrolysis is that you can get into also all those little areas that are very hard to get into with the laser handpiece, because the laser handpieces are pretty like big.
Yeah.
And with electrolysis, you can actually do eyebrows. You can permanently shape your eyebrows with electrolysis, because you've got that precision, because you're treating hair by hair.
Okay, wow. So for bikini, would you say laser is the right option? For
sure. Okay. Listen, any area, I would first go laser. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a lot quicker. Although electrolysis is not as slow as what people would imagine, because people imagine, oh, it's hair by hair, it's going to be very slow. But our electrologists train, they do 150 hours of practical training before they're allowed to treat. Like a pilot does his hours of flying before he's allowed to fly. So can you imagine, they're doing hours, days, hour after hour. And you think, and literally it looks like this, once they finish their training, they're going, so you can imagine you can clear an area quite quickly when you're on a roll.
Yes.
You know? So in actual fact, in the States and in Europe, electrology is more popular than laser.
Oh, okay. So it's growing in popularity then.
It was always more popular than laser overseas. It's just in South Africa, we all caught on a little bit too late. We went straight to the laser.
Yes.
So electrolysis was, like, overseas, was always there, and their technology, they kept up with the technology. Where in South Africa, it's almost like we missed the whole electrology phase, I guess.
Yes,
but
yes.
electrolysis machines are a lot more affordable than laser machines.
Okay.
And that's why you've got a lot of electrologists overseas.
So Tracy asks, what is your advice for facial hair lasering? I found SHR is not very effective on facial hair. So would you
Is the
say
facial hair dark?
electrolysis is the better option then for facial hair? Obviously, you've mentioned that for like light, blonde, gray, ginger hair, that is the way forward. But even on dark hair, would you say electrolysis is a better option, or would you still go for laser?
I'd still go for laser. I would check where I'm going. I would check who is treating me, and I would check the accumulative energy and the fluence. So for a treatment to be good, you have to choose a fluence, which is the strength,
Yes.
and the accumulative energy is how much you accumulate. So you could choose a fluence, for example, and it all depends on your skin color. So the lighter your skin, the more aggressive you can treat. The darker your skin, you need to start off slowly because remember, you've got pigment in the skin and you've got your melanocytes. And when you're lasering, there's like the laser needs time to differentiate between the pigment in your skin and the pigment in the hair. So it's a little bit more trickier with darker skin types, but we get unbelievable results, and it's very, very doable.
And there's no risk of increasing pigmentation with you doing laser?
Very good question, because with old school laser, so think about it this way. You've got your melanocytes in your skin, and that's where your melanin sits, and that is what determines the color of your skin. So obviously, if you're lighter, you've got less melanin or light melanin, and if you're darker, you've got darker melanin or more melanin. And with your skin, what happens is melanin will react in one of two ways if it's aggravated. Either it will overproduce because it's feeling threatened, it's under threat, or it will get in shock and just stop producing. So for example, if you aggravate your skin, so I know that there's a lot of women, for example, with their underarm hair, they have shaved for years and years and years. And even though they've shaved and there's no hair, there's still a shadow. And I'm not talking a shadow from the hair growing back. I'm talking about like pigmentation shadow. And it's very, very common with Indian skin types, very common with dark ladies, because their skin is more sensitive. And you have to be very, very careful with darker skin types. And even shaving or waxing can aggravate those melanocytes, so they overproduce. Or what happens is, like, for example, with an Indian or an African skin type, if you burn a darker skin type, for example, that skin that's recuperating will probably have no pigment in it. It'll probably be pink or white. And then only after it's like healed does the pigment start to return. But if the wound is bad enough, the pigment will never come back. And that's very, very important, because when you're treating somebody with darker skin types, if you burn a darker skin type, you could cause permanent damage.
Oh, wow.
So with old school technology, and this is why a lot of women were told, don't laser and then go in the sun, because then you'll get pigment. And the reason for that is because, remember, they used the old pick and place method of treatment, that zap and move, which was like that elastic band snapping on your skin. It completely aggravated your melanocytes. So have that aggravation, plus then go into the sun and aggravate it even more. Inflammation and probably overproduction. So in the 10 years of business, I've never had one client come back to us and tell us that they've suffered from pigment, from laser. Never. And that's because of that gradual heat. We're not hurting the skin so badly that it that it reacts in a way that it overproduces or underproduces or whatever have you.
Yes.
And I think it's very important that that people know this, because in today's day and age, and especially with like technology, facials and laser treatments, etc., we are using all different kinds of controlled injuries to get certain results. Whether it's Fraxel, whether it's microneedling, whether it's peeling, whether it's laser hair removal, whatever laser that you're using, it's a controlled injury. And unless you know how to make that, how to sort of ensure the safety around the injury that you're causing, you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. So that was one of the questions that came up, was how do you choose a salon or spa, a therapist, and make sure that they are reputable?
Yeah. Come to Laser Beautique first, because we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's the first thing.
To do some research, find out what machines they're using, what technology they're using.
And ask questions. Don't be scared to ask questions. Ask, what kind of laser is it? Is it a diode? Is it an IPL? If it's an IPL, it's not a laser. If they tell you they've got IPL and that's their laser, then they don't even know the difference between IPL and laser. Then that's the first flag that tells you that they don't know what they're doing, if they're calling their IPL a laser. Is it an Nd:YAG? Is it an alexandrite? Alex, Nd:YAG, and diode lasers are all very good for hair removal. Anything else? No. When it comes to lasers, ask for your therapist's training certification. That's very important, to see that she's actually been trained. What else? And also, you need to trust in the fact the environment is a result-driven environment, like I said, that the people that are managing the branch or that are managing the business are constantly looking and keeping their therapists on their toes, because, you know, people, like I said, they kick into autopilot.
And we've been talking all things hair removal. Tzvia is the owner of a company called the Laser Beautique, and she's got a lot of experience in the space, and she's been sharing some of her knowledge about laser. Actually hoping to have Tzvia join me again next week, where she'll be sharing a little bit more about technology facials. And if that's something that interests you and that you would like to learn more about, please come and join us again, and feel free to get your questions ready. She mentioned a few of the options already, like microneedling, Fraxel. I can't remember all the others, but you can come and join us next week, Tuesday, at 8 p.m. Tzvia and I will be chatting about all things technology facials, and we'd love to have you back. Thank you again for joining me. I've really been very grateful for all the people who have come and spent a little bit of time, and I'm glad you found it helpful, Tracy. Thank you so much for your comment. And yeah, thank you everyone for coming along. It was so lovely, and I will see you again soon. Bye.